Hey, what's up guys? In today's video we're going to talk about setting up your rifle for night vision. Now understand there's many ways you can go about this. You can have a purpose-built rifle specifically for night vision, or you can just have like a multi-purpose rifle and equip it with some night vision capabilities. So I'm just going to go over how I set them up, tailor them so they're nice and efficient, and how I can reduce the overall signature of the rifle under night vision. It is nice to have both a laser aiming module and a night vision friendly optic on your rifle for a couple reasons. You have the option of using either one, and in some situations using the IR device is a lot more practical, but in others using an optic may be more appropriate just because night vision is in common use, and every time you press that button you're putting out a signature, you're notifying other people who have knots in the vicinity or even a little bit of distance of your presence. That doesn't mean they're going to be able to zero in on your exact position, but they'll know you're there. And if you paint someone with a giant ass illuminator, that person's probably going to expect they're being targeted. And if you have both of these, if one of them happens to go down, you can just use the other. When it comes to choosing a laser aiming module, honestly, it's just going to come down to your budget. There's plenty of good ones out there and they can get pretty expensive. The ones that I use are the full-powered dbal A2s mostly, and sometimes the full-powered FEC 15s. And the reason I like these is because they definitely have the performance. They have full-powered laser-based illuminators, which penetrate things like the photonic barriers or the light pollution you get in urban areas. So I'd rather have something like this, and you can find these used for about around the same price as buying like a brand new civilian A3 or D2. So I choose these. One of the weak points on a lot of the laser aiming modules out there is the mounting system. For whatever reason, a lot of them have absolutely terrible mounts. So just like on an optic like this aimpoint or that nightforce, you want to have a solid mount so you can actually retain a proper zero over time. And with the dbals, they have a non-adjustable throw lever. So if it does not interface with whatever route you mount it to nicely, there is no way you can actually tighten it. And that was the case with this Knight's Armament upper. I mounted 5 different dbals on this rail, and 4 of them I can actually push on either side of the device. Not too hard, but actually shift the zero of the laser. So what I do is I upgrade the mount if you're able to do that on your device. And the Root Tactical makes mounts for the dbals. It's the LT271 light laser mount, and it is an adjustable throw lever, which is a lot better made than the OEM mount. If you have a bunch of crap on your rifle that you need and you're adding a WAM like this, you're going to have to prioritize stuff. So figure out what is most important. And obviously on the front end, the most important thing is the dbal. So this gets priority over other things. And if I have to move my light or my front sight to get this in a position where I want it, that's just what I'm going to have to do. I was able to use an air socket light mount and get this light at a 45-degree offset, but on this other rifle I had to have my lights at a 90-degree parallel. So no big deal. You might have to move your light somewhere different, so just know that. On the front sight I turn around backwards and I have it at the front just because on the dbals the battery compartment is in the front. So I need enough room to take out this battery and put a new one in without removing the front sight or the dbal. You don't want to do that because then you're going to have to confirm zero every time you change out your battery. And if you use this thing, you're going to be going through batteries, trust me. On this rifle, I am using a Surefire dual pressure pad. Whether you want to use a pressure pad, a tail cap, the push button is totally personal preference. So figure out what works best for you, not what some guy on the internet says. So both of them are fine. I use a dual pressure pad on this one. The front one is the laser. The rear one is the white light, just because my thumb is always resting on the device and I have to go more out of the way to push the button for the white light. And I know people are going to say, why don't you just push the button up top? I do sometimes, but the dbal buttons, in my opinion, are too small, so I like having a larger option right here. On the other rifle, I just have a push button on my flashlight, and I have a pressure pad just for the dbal, and it is nice so I can actually kind of grip it and actuate the laser. So it's honestly just going to come down to personal preference. just make sure that you retain the wires properly, and be aware some of the cheaper pressure pads like this one that's from a PEC can melt if your road gets hot enough. So for this one, I've actually wrapped it in tape, the pressure pad itself, and I've wrapped more tape around it just to try to protect it from the heat so it doesn't melt. Even if you have a purpose-built rifle just for night vision, you still want to have a flashlight on that rifle. And you want to know how using that flashlight will affect your night vision. So you do want to test that out. I know people are going to say, don't press the light while you're using your knots. Understand, if I can use this full-powered laser-based illuminator to aim, and that does not damage my nods, a 1000 lumen weapon light shining the opposite direction is not going to use it. And you want to know how that affects your nods when it auto-gates especially. And if the battery dies in your module or your nods or they just go down, you still want to be able to use that flashlight. When you go to zero your laser aiming module, there's two different types of zeros. I'm sure most people know this. There is the conversion zero and the parallel zero. Conversion zero just means point of aim, point of impact for your desired distance of zero. Parallel zero is exactly what it sounds like, a parallel zero to the zero with your optic. They do make special targets to do this. If you don't have one of those special targets, all you have to do is just pick your rifle up, put it on the target, shine the laser on it, mark it with the pen, and that's how you make one of those targets. For this aim point, how I zero it is I just go out under night vision, I move the IR laser next to the reticle, and then I confirm it at 50 yards. For this one, I actually do it a little bit different. Most of the time I'll go out during the day and do this, and I'll use my full powered visible laser, which really comes in handy, and I use the magnification on this LPV. I go to 8x, so at 50 yards I can see the laser and I can see my point of aims or my point of impacts, and then obviously I just confirm later with the IR laser under knots. Let's talk about camouflage and reducing your overall signature of your rifle. Spray paint works fairly well, actually works pretty well. Rust-Oleum, I just spray paint it, kind of some browns, a little bit of green because I do live in the desert, and does camouflage it to the naked eye, but under night vision, when you shine IR on it, it actually looks really good. I did use some of the camoform tape on stuff like my optic and up here, and this works pretty good under IR too. Just understand, a black rifle will stand out. If you don't believe me, look at your black rifle under night vision. Shine the illuminator on it. You can see how certain things change colors. They reflect light, they absorb light, and some things light up pretty well. So obviously you can be discovered, and you want to try to minimize that overall signature of your rifle. Another thing you want to do is try to minimize the muzzle flash on your rifle. I have a Knight's Armament flash hider. Surefire flash hider also works pretty good. The suppressor is going to be the best option, but just understand a black suppressor is going to reflect all that light coming off your illuminator. So if you're going to go buy a suppressor to minimize your signature, and then you have a glowing suppressor from the IR and heat when you shoot your rifle, not really going to do anything for you. So make sure that you get a suppressor cover that is IR compliant or looks okay under knots, and exercise discipline of this laser aiming module. You want to treat it just like you would a white light. When it comes to choosing an optic, there's a lot of good choices out there. My favorite is still the eotech, just because it has a large window, and when you're looking through a tube through an optic, it is nice to have a large window with crystal clear glass with good light transmission. Aim points are also good. They're not quite on the level of an eotech, but they're acceptable, and that's why I do use them as well. When it comes to magnified optics, you can actually passively shoot with a magnified optic. Now, they're not all created equal, just like with red dots or holographic sights. On this nightforce, I do have my diopter marked with camoform tape. I have a little fold in it, as you can see. So in the dark, I can adjust the diopter just by feel and have it set up so I can look through it and see the reticle and have a nice good field of view. And generally with your lamb, you can only shoot about 200 or 300 yards with some type of consistency. But when I spotlight with this full power illuminator and I look through my LPVO, I've made shots about 400 yards before, probably a little bit further if I tried, but you know, just something I do. And it is possible to passively shoot with magnified optics. You just have to kind of set them up so you know, it works and you have the proper amount of eye relief. I do have this pushed forward, slightly forward of the charging handle. I usually shoot with the stock one click in, but when I passively shoot, I just bring it one click out, and then I have the perfect amount of eye relief. A couple other things I like to have on the rifle is an oversized bolt catch and some type of charging handle that has a nice hook on that. Just because when you're shooting under nods, obviously it's dark and your rifle is most likely going to be out of focus. So it is nice to have things like an oversized bolt catch and a charging handle like this radium, because it's pretty hard to miss those in the dark. So just you know, word of advice. I also tape over the LED lights on my dbals or the I don't know if the pecs have them, I can't remember, just because this thing will glow when you press the button, and it's kind of a nuisance when you're under nods and you're looking through your optic, or you're just seeing that glow because it's amplified under your nods. So I do just tape it off, and I'm cognizant when this is on and when it's off. Alright guys, that's going to be it for this video. If you watched to the end, I appreciate it, and I'll see you guys in the next one.